Welcome to another episode of our Game of Thrones discussions. And my name is Brian McBalls, joined by Jordan Wade.
Hey guys, how's it going?
We missed last week. We didn't get a chance to record. So sorry about that, but we're here for season 5, episode 4 today. We will talk a little bit about episode 3, what we thought were the highlights of the episode, and go a little bit into that. Spoiler warnings. If you are not caught up to season 5, episode 4 of Game of Thrones, you want to back out now. We're going to talk about everything that happens up to this point and compare similar events to what happens in the books. We're not going to spoil anything ahead, though. So without further ado, let us begin. We're going to catch up with a little of the episode 3 stuff we missed. Let's start with the Jano Slint execution. Jordan,
Yes.
what do you have to say about that? Why don't you go ahead and start us off?
So this is coming off the heels of Jon being elected to being the head of the Night's Watch, which was a very big, proud moment. He basically tells Janos Slynt to what's great. What was the castle that he told him to go to be in charge of?
I forgot the name of the castle, but it's one of the abandoned castles on the wall. And he's like, "Hey, Janos, why don't you go ahead and take some guys over there and fix it up?" And he's like, "I won't go to this lousy fort." Like he just like totally turns him down. And so he gives him another chance. He's like, "Hey, I'm giving you another chance. Take your men and ride now, and I'll, go ahead and do it." And he still turns him down. So Jon takes some northern justice. And
What's interesting about this is that he looked toward Alistair.
Alistair Thorne.
Alistair Thorne, and was hoping that Alistair Thorne would have his back, and Alistair Thorne stepped out of the way, that was a big moment, obviously, because Alistair Thorne and Jon never saw eye to eye, but Jon making him the first Ranger was a big deal. So, and of course, Janos Slynt thought he said, "Oh, if you think you're going to scare me, it's not working." Like he just continued the whole time being dragged to where he was going to be beheaded. He thought, "Oh, he's just making me get scared. He just wants me to make an example of me." And he gets up there, and Jon's not flinching. He's not. He says, "Here's you. Any last words?" And then Janos basically begs for his life and says, "I learned my lesson. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it." And then what happens? Jon chops his head off in one of the cleanest cuts in the whole show.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of poetic justice in this whole thing because Janos was the commander of the Gold Cloaks who said he had Ned Stark's back when Ned wanted to take the throne room, and he turned his back on Ned, and it's what got Ned into Lannister custody and what ultimately led to Ned's death. So Janos Slynt played a pretty large role in that. I think if the Gold Cloaks had sided with Ned, this would be a whole different story. So this is really a big deal because I don't know if it's this way in the show. I'm trying to remember if Jon knows that Janos Slynt did what he did.
I can't remember if they brought that up or not. I don't remember if Janos Slynt maybe had some sort of gross remark about his father or something like that.
He did say something about a traitor's son.
Yes,
he has the traitor's blood or something like that. So I have a feeling he knows in the show, but maybe it's just not as clear. But in the books, I know he knows, and it's a very satisfying moment for him internally. Obviously, we don't have the internal dialogue here, but this is the guy who killed that basically betrayed his father and got his father killed. And to the Night's Watch rules, all of your crimes are washed away. They're all forgotten. Like, if a man murdered somebody but he joined the Night's Watch, you can't go after him for that by the laws of the land. So, Jon can't take vengeance without breaking his vows. But however, in this moment where Janos Slynt defies his Lord Commander multiple times, he defies an order, then Jon has he can execute him by the rules, and it's the guy who got his father killed, and it just serves two purposes. He's working within his vows to do justice, and I don't know. It's a great moment, and the cherry on top is he looks up and it's Stannis the Manus on the wall himself, just with a curt little nod. Not many people get a nod of approval from Stannis. He's not a very happy guy, or he doesn't agree with a lot that goes on. But
Yeah,
I think,
I'd heard the comparison to that nod would be like a big giant bear hug from somebody. Like that's the closest comparison you could think. Like that is Stannis' equivalent to that. So that was a huge deal for him just to nod to Jon after the execution.
and I think it cements. I think that one moment alone cements in Stannis's head, like, Jon is not just some boy or not some craven leader. He's a guy that he will serve punishment and justice. He's exercising his right as a commander, and what his he's not going to let some treason go unpunished. He's being an effective ruler, and Stannis really appreciates and respects that, I think. So yeah, that was a great moment. I was waiting for that, and to be honest, it's probably one of the biggest moments of justice ever in the series. I want to say it just because a lot of times the bad guys don't get comeuppance in a way that you expect. Now, like, for instance, everybody hated Joffrey, and everybody wanted Joffrey dead, obviously. But I think nobody expected him to go out being poisoned and just die. Like, people wanted, Arya to come stab him, or some Stark to come seek vengeance, what have you. But he gets killed in an unrelated way. So for Jon to take vengeance on this guy who killed his father, I think that's a very, very rare occurrence that justice is served.
Yeah, I mean yeah, I think it's the first time that a Stark has actually been able to, like I said, get their come up, get put a villain's, get revenge for something that occurred earlier in the show. Because the Starks have been constantly screwed over, constantly bad things happen to them, and this is the first time that they get payback for something that's occurred to them. I mean, John's dad was killed because of Janos Slynt, and Janos Slynt died in the same way that his dad died. So there is poetic justice in that, and it was a beautiful moment. And it was, it's as bloodthirsty as it sounds, it kind of made the hair on the back of my neck stand, just because that whole moment was just so beautifully done.
Oh yeah, excellent. And yeah, I can't praise that moment enough. But we'll go ahead and move on. And I guess we'll go with Tyrion. Let's just glaze over this real quick because it extends later. Tyrion was kidnapped by Jorah. This is very similar to the books. Tyrion is kidnapped by Jorah in the books. But Varys is not with them. Tyrion's with another group of people when this happens. But it happens in a Volantene brothel. No, actually, I don't think it actually happened in Volantis. No, it happened in another town. But regardless, they were in a brothel, and that's where Jorah found Tyrion. The only difference is Jorah is actually with the silver-haired lady at the brothel in the books.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring that up because we didn't see him with it in the show. You could tell that look he had toward her, which is this longing look. We know that Jorah is jonesing bad for Dany, so it would be fitting that he'd be hanging out in the brothel that would have a woman that would dress herself up like the Mother of Dragons. And that was just an interesting little detail there.
Yep. So, he's kidnapped by Jorah. Let's move on. Sansa has been betrothed to Ramsay Snow.
I didn't see this coming at all. I was actually incredibly shocked when that news was dropped because though I didn't know exactly what Littlefinger was doing with Sansa, once he found out that he was marrying her off to Ramsay, especially after what all we know and seen with Ramsay, it was a horrifying moment. Just because Sansa doesn't deserve that, but it was sort of a weird conversation though, where he says, "Avenge." You can be a victim, or you can avenge your family's, your family, with this. And I think we'll kind of go into this in the next episode. It feels like Littlefinger is sort of, you and I've discussed before the episode, there's some sort of clairvoyant qualities with them. Like he's really he's putting all of his money on like black 22 or something like that. He knows like something's going down. It just feels a little weird.
He's betting like 5 moves ahead of where he should be. It's really interesting. We'll get to it. But another thing that's pretty awesome, Sansa has returned to Winterfell.
Yeah.
and Theon gets a look and he notices her. And I can't wait to see this all like play out. It's very interesting to me. Sansa is not in Winterfell or anywhere near Winterfell in the books, and to see Theon recognize her, and he obviously he knows who she is. He grew up with her, and I want to see how things play out. It's really going to be interesting. I can't wait to see it, and to see Sansa in her home, like that's something very pleasing to me because in the books, Sansa is one of the most internal characters. Most of her, everything that goes on is all in her head in the books because she's always been like a political prisoner. She can't really say what she wants to. She has to say what she needs to say to survive. So all of her real thoughts, you only get an internal monologue, and she basically realizes that she was a stupid little girl. Like all the time she lived in Winterfell with her family, and when her family was alive, she really took that for granted. And when she was a little girl, all she could dream of was getting out of Winterfell and going to marry some prince somewhere and live happily ever after. But after everything went down and she's back home, well, in the book she doesn't get home, but she keeps remembering all these little things about Winterfell that she loved, and then it hits her that she's just stupid. Like she had the perfect home, she had a loving family, she had the townspeople, their people loved them, and she had a great thing going at Winterfell, and she realizes that she was wishing to leave it when that's the best place she'd ever been. And so for her to return there it's really it hits an emotional chord for me because I want to see like in episode 4 we see her visit the crypts, and the Starks always like to pay their respects to the dead, and it's a strong belief in and what's the word not
Tradition.
culture, tradition. It's a strong tradition for them, and for her to be in those crypts paying respects to her family, it's really good to see.
Yeah, and it's a callback to what we saw in the first season. Her dad went down there. Her dad lit candles for, in the crypt. And so it's a very nice scene to see Sansa kind of connect with her family that way. Because beyond just seeing those statues and being in the crypt, it is their tradition to pay respects to the family. And that was a really good moment.
Yeah, and I think there was a little interesting what's the word Easter egg that when she goes down there and she's looking at Lyanna's tomb, there she gets a feather out of her hands, and that's the feather that Robert Baratheon put there in episode 1.
Oh man, that's
Yeah,
right. Because I remember I didn't know why the feather was like dawning on me. Like there's the feather's important. I couldn't remember why, but okay, that makes sense.
yeah. So I think that was deliberate. I think they did that on purpose. But yeah, I mean, great stuff. Anything else we should mention about episode 3? Oh, the Arya scene. I gotta talk about
Yes.
this one. Um, Arya is told at the House in Black and White that she is not acting like no one. She's acting like Arya Stark. And they're like, why does no one have all of Arya Stark's possessions? So she's been told she needs to relinquish her items. And she starts getting rid of all her stuff, her money, her clothes, whatever else she has on her, and it comes down to Needle, and she can't get rid of Needle. Like it means so much to her, and it's such a beautiful scene, and like a beautiful scene, like the way she acted it out. Macy Williams is brilliant. Um, Even though you can't hear the internal thoughts and all, like you do in the books, I feel like she acted it out well enough for the emotional impact hit me. So
Yeah, everything in her face read that this is because in that it was almost like I was inside her mind at that moment because I remembered her dad giving her that sword. I remember her training with her brothers at Winterfell. I remember her sword lessons. I remember how it was taken away from her and how she got it back. Like everything about that sword is incredibly important. That was a gift to her from her family, and so that is the last thing. That is the last sort of keepsake she has that can remind her of her family, and that was a very very touching moment. Yes.
yeah, so she hides it in some cobblestones, and yeah, she's not ready to give it up. So that was perfect. Love that scene. Probably my favorite scene from episode 3. Oh, I don't know. It's between that and the head nod. I can't pick. But
both
wait,
are both are good options.
good Stark moments. So I think that's about it. We should cover on episode 3. I don't want to linger too long on that. Um,
Well, we can kind of. There's one last thing we want to cover, but it lends itself more into episode 4, and that is the introduction to High Sparrow. Uh, we obviously Lancel in episode 1, was it? Yeah, I think it was episode 1 where Lancel had introduced the Sparrows, and so we finally meet their leader, High Sparrow, and Cersei goes to meet him, and Cersei's losing her power. So she is aligning herself with the faith in order to sort of gain some power. And she gave it's faith militants, right? That she gave to the High Sparrow.
yeah, so there was this there was a organization, basically the church, the Faith of the Seven. It used to have its own order of knights called the Faith Militant. And it was basically knights and warriors with the seven-pointed star symbol on their armor and in their arms. And they basically just served the gods and served the High Septon. So this was done away with. One of the Targaryen kings took away all the power of the faith to command an army. And I don't remember all the history on that. It's been a while since I read it, but it's been away for a couple hundred years, and now Cersei is trying to bring this in because she needs another way to hold on to power. So I think she feels that if she does a favor for the High Septon and gets the Faith Militant instated, that maybe the High Septon will owe her one. So yeah, she's enacted the Faith Militant. She got that signed, and it's a thing now. And I think it's kind of interesting how they play this out because they kind of make them seem like cultists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was particularly jarring, actually, just because the way they present the High Sparrow, he's very passive and very kind of ideal for a religious leader, and suddenly there's a group that starts following him. Looks like these cultist monks and these black robes and the carvings in the head, which was really extreme. And the music they were playing was very, grim, and so it was very jarring. Actually, one of the more unsettling, I think, moments in recent episodes in the show.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting they played out that way. It's a little bit different in the books. I want to say I never got the impression that they were cult like. I mean, yeah, they're religious fanatics, but at the core of that movement of the Sparrows, it's basically all the people who were chased off their lands during the war, and the people who were left to starve and fight for their own. And the king just didn't come in. He abandoned his people. He didn't help them. So it's a group of people who organized under religion to protect themselves and to help the poor people who were left at the mercy of the War of the Five Kings. So I think they took it a little far. I'm interested to see where they go with it. But the carvings in the head and the fact that they are organized to a level to all have matching robes. These people are so poor they wouldn't be able to afford those robes. Like they would all be wearing just like torn up tunics and stuff. That's like how poor they are. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And the High Sparrow. What was the actor's name who plays him?
It's Jonathan Pryce, right?
Jonathan Pryce. Yeah, I love Jonathan Pryce. I think he's excellent. And almost everything I've seen him in, he's always wonderful. So I was looking forward to seeing him take on this role, and I think he's doing a good job. He, I want to say he's different than he is in the books, and in a way that I think is going to play out really interestingly is he seems like like you said, a very calm, a very kind individual. But I think compared to the books, he's very stern and very Old Testament like, like looking for vengeance, looking for justice. This guy seems more calm. I think that it's kind of a front. If I had to take a guess, I think the showrunners are using that. He's using that as a mask that he's super friendly and he doesn't want to do anything. But I think behind the scenes, he's calling the shots. I think he's ordering these cultists to do what they're doing.
Yeah, and we don't get a good look. We don't get a look at him beyond actually beyond Cersei giving him the faith militant in the beginning of the episode. We don't see him again. In fact, Tommen goes to him later on after well, when they go through and they purge the city of sin, in the process they arrest Loris, and obviously Marjorie is very upset about this, so she has Tommen go talk to his mom, uh, and his mom was totally not having any of it, like
Yeah,
whatsoever.
I feel bad for Tom, and he's stuck between the two of them, and they're playing their game, and they're like tugging him in the middle, and it's I don't know, it feels bad because they're torturing this kid, and he's a good kid.
Yeah.
He's trying to resolve the situation peacefully, and he's a novice king. Obviously, he doesn't know what he's doing completely, but he's getting the runaround from his wife and his mother. I just do not envy his position at all.
No, no. Tommen seems like a good guy. Like he's trying his best to be a good king, and these two controlling women are not having any of it. But we see him go to the steps of the High Sparrow, and he's
Yeah.
stopped.
Yeah, he got turned away. They're like, yeah, he doesn't want to be interrupted during his prayers. And he's like, oh, okay. Guess I'll come back later. So that's where I think it stopped. He
Well,
does.
the
Yeah.
Kingsguard was ready to roll. Like
Yeah.
they said, "Do you want us to push through?" Basically, and he said, "What? Kill them?" And there was sort of silence. And what stops him? I don't think Tommen would wanted bloodshed to begin with, but really stopped. They realized there was two fronts. They had the front in front of them with weapons, and they had the people behind them calling out "bastard" and "child of sin" or something like that. Or and Tommen doesn't I don't think Tommen knows. Well, Tommen doesn't know that his parents are brother and sister. I think he does believe that his dad was Robert Baratheon. I mean, why would he have any other reason to not believe that? So it kind of struck him as, I think he was hurt by the things that are being said to him, as he didn't fully understand why those things were being said to him. So it caused him to back off. He goes back, and Marjorie is like, "I'm going home. I got to be with my family." So that's Marjorie's power play, because he desires her to be with him at King's Landing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that whole thing's unfolding pretty crazy. And then let's move back to the wall. Some of my favorite stuff's going on there right now, and we got Stannis. He's really making some good PR moves for the fans these last few weeks, and he sticks up for Shireen. She comes in and says, "Hey, Father, are you ashamed of me?" And he gives her this speech about how he did everything in the world to stop the disease, and he called in all the maesters and apothecaries from around that side of the world just to save her. And yeah, Stannis is not a very affectionate man, but he gives Shireen a hug and he comforts her, and it's a big thing to see from Stannis.
Yeah, and what makes it more impactful is after his wife earlier in the episode talks so poorly of their daughter, and throughout the series, she is not. Her daughter is this constant reminder that she couldn't bear a son, and not only does she only have a daughter, but she has a daughter who's been stricken with this illness and has scales on her face, and it's sort of sad because Shireen is such a sweet girl. Like there's nothing bad about her, and it's a shame that her mom's a weird religious fanatic. Anyways, I mean, if she's letting this younger woman sleep with her husband, just because she's a priestess, she's obviously got some issues. But that's what made that moment with Stannis so much more impactful, just because Shireen is constantly put down by her mom behind her back and in front of her face. And for her dad to stand up and say, "You know what? I love you. You are the princess of House Baratheon. And I would do everything in order for you to, stay my daughter and be alive." I mean, that was a touching moment, and I'm now fully behind Stannis. I wasn't like, Stannis has been growing on me, admittedly, but now it's like, okay, this dude is actually pretty cool. Like, he is a decent guy. He's a little shut off, a little stern, but hey, if he gets the throne, I'm good with that. He might actually be a damn good king.
See, I'm glad you've come around. Like Stannis, he's the Manus. I mean, and I feel like a lot of people have this reaction to him, is that he seems like a total asshole and dick, and that when you first meet him, and then like as you learn more about him, you slowly start to understand what he's about. And yeah, I can't wait for you to see more. I mean, he's a really interesting guy. And there's a lot of people who still don't like him that much, but I really like the character. He's really grown on me. And I mean, Davos is like one of the most stand-up guys in the books, and if Davos is behind Stannis, I mean, there's got to be a reason for that, right?
Right, right. I don't think Davos would put his weight behind a guy who is not an upstanding guy.
Yeah, like I would never see Davos like supporting Joffrey or something, you know, like
No, no.
Davos has he's a good judge of character, I think.
Yeah.
So we got that going on, and we also got Melisandre still pulling some sexual harassment on John.
And before we go into this particular scene, it is interesting that before she goes to see John, first Stannis says, "I need you," and she deflects it. She goes, "You don't need me. Uh, you need faith or something like that, right?" I mean, basically, I
Oh
think
yeah, that's right. She did say something like that.
like he was saying, I need you," and when he said that in the past, he meant it in a physical way, and she deflected it, which is interesting because in the past, I think Melisandre would have given into that, being that he is the chosen one. And then Stannis' wife has said something remark about John, how he was born from a slut, basically, And
Uh-huh.
Stannis drops that he defends Ned. He said Ned wasn't that. Ned was a
Yeah,
man of honor, and he wasn't
yeah,
that type of guy.
yeah, he says that wasn't Ned's way.
That wasn't Ned's way. It was very
Yeah.
interesting. So that's all leading into this interaction with Melisandre and John. And it was interesting. Why is she? You kind of worry because last time we saw this was with Gendry, and things didn't turn out too well for Gendry.
Yeah. Yeah,
Fortunately, he got away. But
he's still rowing that boat somewhere. We don't know where he is, but he's out to sea rowing that boat somewhere.
I hope he's got Essos or something like that by now. But yeah, he's still out there. But regardless, it wasn't a good outcome. But it was all that it was. Alessandra does things for a reason, and I don't think she's just tempting John just to tempt John.
Yeah, something's going on there. There's something we haven't figured out yet in the show that why she's doing this. And John turns her down, says he's still in love with Egret. This is a really cool moment, actually. He says he's still in love with and then thing is, I don't think John has told her anything about Egret. I don't think John has had a conversation and said, "Hey, I used to have this girl, yada yada." So, anyways, John says, "I still love another," and then she automatically knows that Egret is dead. She goes, "The dead do not need love," or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, "It doesn't change it. I'm still in love with her. I can't do anything, And then as she's walking out the door, she turns to John and says, "You know nothing, Jon Snow." And right at that moment, John's like, "What the fuck?" Like, because that's where something mystical is going on there.
Yeah.
Melisandre has done something to know about that, whether it's a vision or she somehow found out about that, because only John knows about that.
Yeah.
He hasn't told anybody about that. So that's why it's kind of spooked. That's why he's got that face like he's spooked out at the end, because Melisandre is talking about something that she couldn't possibly know about. That's what Egret always used to tell John.
Right. That was Egret's that was her catchphrase. But yeah, and Melisandre has power, but that really cemented the fact that she is she knows more than we give her credit for, and it's interesting to see how that's going to play out. Just because Melisandre's really only shown interest in those who have royal blood, so to speak. So it's interesting.
Yep. Another little thing that happened. Just a quick note: before Melisandre came in, Sam had John signing letters, and they were letters to the lords around Westeros, just asking for supplies and men for the watch. So a letter to the Boltons comes up, and John is hesitant to sign it because the Boltons are the ones who killed his brother. But John, being sticking to his vows, he remembers, the wall takes no sides, and he ends up signing the letter to request assistance from the Boltons. So interesting stuff there. There's a lot more details on those letters in the books, and we'll see if they go through with explaining more of that. But it's more of a strategic kind of thing going on. and we'll see how that plays out. I think it was interesting they included it. I think that's all we have for the wall, unless you can think of something else.
Then that's pretty much it. We'll go ahead and move on to a whole other side of the world. Down in Dorne, we have Jaime and Bronn making landfall, and they have a little interesting conversation about death. And I didn't feel very good after this conversation, just because they talk about how all ways of dying are shit ways of dying. Death is never a beautiful thing, so to speak. It all sucks. But Bronn brings up that he's lived an exciting life. He wants a boring death, and that, I don't know, man. That just doesn't give me a very good feeling for Bronn going forward.
Yeah, that's asking a little bit much in that world they live in. I think it's like, but we'll see. They make landfall, and they've already gotten into some trouble. And yeah, Jaime's having struggles with his left hand fighting.
Yeah.
Bronn's kicking ass.
I do love Bronn's little line where because Jaime said maybe I can take on a slow one, and he knocks out the leg of the horse, and he goes, that one should be slow enough. And I thought that was so great, just because Bronn just said, there you go, I knocked him off a horse, you go do your thing, just handle it. Yeah, just handle it.
And so yeah, we also learned that Dorne is alerted to their presence. Dorne knows that Jaime's there, so their espionage did not last long.
No.
The Sand Snakes know they're there as well. And yeah, we are introduced to the Sand Snakes finally. Nim, Obara, and I forgot the other one's name. Tien?
Yeah.
Tyene. So, yeah, the Sand Snakes, they're quite different from the books. Do you have anything, what was your thoughts on the Sand Snakes? Because this is the first you're seeing them.
To be honest, the scene was kind of disjointed to me, just because it felt like an introduction for introduction's sake. And I mean, I know that's necessary, but they're all daughters of Oberyn, correct? I mean, that's
all three are daughters of Oberyn. The older two are from other women, and the youngest is Alaria's daughter.
Okay. And see, that wasn't made apparently clear to me initially, except for when that one daughter was a little more affectionate to Alaria. I mean, she was much closer than the other two, so I was thinking there was something up there. They're gifted with weapons. That's for sure. Whip and spear we saw. Something's going down with them. I don't know what to really think of them yet. Keisha Castle Hughes was it Obara, right? That's I think she was. That's who played. I think that was her name. I know it's Keisha Castle Hughes, but it's interesting casting because she was actually nominated for an Oscar when she was younger. She was one of the youngest actresses ever be nominated for Best Actress for Whale Rider some years ago, and she hasn't done a lot of acting since. So it was interesting to see her as one of the Sand Snakes. But yeah, I don't.
She's Obara, yeah.
I don't think their introduction is just a waste of time. They're obviously going to be doing something, and they're going to be. I don't feel good for Bronn and Jaime. That's all I'll say, because those girls are spoiling for a fight.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it is really early to tell where they're going to go with that so far, and so, but yeah, those are Oberyn's daughters, and we'll see where that goes. Let's move on to let's go back to the conversation we were having about Littlefinger.
Yeah,
being able to plan several steps ahead. Anyways, we get a scene where Sansa is in the Winterfell crypts, and she's lighting candles for her family down there. And Littlefinger comes in, and he's like, "Hey, I need to go. Cersei wrote me a letter. I need to leave. I need to go somewhere." And he's like, "I'm leaving you here." And she's like, "Well, what does that mean for me? Like, you're leaving me with these people." And he basically says, "Hey, look, Stannis is at the wall. He's coming to Winterfell before the snow falls, and he's gonna take this place." Like he's seeing things that I don't think he has the possibility to really see. He's guessing that Stannis is gonna come for Winterfell. He's guessing he's gonna come before the snow, and he's assuming that Stannis is just gonna take Winterfell, without a hitch, because he's one of the most decorated commanders in living Westeros history. So yeah, and so he's assuming that Sansa will not be harmed during this conquering of Winterfell, and that Stannis will recognize who she is and will make her the Wardeness of the North.
Yeah, there's a lot of details that he's really gambling on. Like, and I don't get the impression that he's talked to Stannis about this. So I don't. I don't know how he knows it's going to play out like this. Like, it's just like as if there's no other options. This is just how it's going to go. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. It's just all going to pan out.
One thing that now that you mentioned that, you just made me think. Stannis used to be on the Small Council, and that's probably something they had never mentioned in the books. Stannis was on the Small Council with Littlefinger, Varys, Barristan Selmy, and Jon Arryn, and Renly. And those six were the Small Council before Jon Arryn died.
Oh,
and
okay.
So Stannis does not like Littlefinger. He does not like Varys. There's very few people he does like at that table. Like, I think the only person he really cared for was Jon Arryn. So this whole thing that Littlefinger's gambling on, it even seems more unstable to me now, because I don't think Stannis would work with the guy. I think Stannis would say, "Hey, look, you're a snake. You're a weasel. Like, I'm not gonna let you near my plans." Like, I think he would punish Littlefinger, to be honest, because I think in the books it's very well known that Littlefinger kind of betrayed Ned, and I don't think he would let that slide. I think he would take justice.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Stannis is the type of guy to get in bed with a weasel character like that. I think Stannis is very up. I think he'd rather be up front and by the book. I mean, not necessarily by the book, but justice, and very very upfront with everything. So, yeah, it's a little odd. And also more so if it plays out exactly that way too, because it's almost like the show's kind of showing its hand before it occurs.
Yeah.
But I guess in that moment they needed to have some sort of consolation for Sansa as Littlefinger was leaving. He did give her a deep kiss that was a little weird, and Sansa didn't really pull away from it or anything. Almost like Sansa, because Sansa was like, "Oh." She's kind of still thrown aback that she's not marrying Littlefinger, which is a little odd to me. I don't know why she would be interested in Littlefinger, but I guess he's safe.
Well, I think anybody's better than Ramsay Bolton. Like, anybody. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she was destined to marry Joffrey, which would have been horrible. She was married to Tyrion, which she didn't want, and now she's being handed off to Joffrey 2.0.
Wow. Yeah, she gets some pretty bad marriage prospects,
For a beautiful girl from Winterfell, she has not had too many decent gentleman suitors.
Yep. So, yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Like I said, it's a very clairvoyant Peter Baelish to plan out ahead that all these things are going to fall into place like that. We'll see if it actually plays out that way.
Yeah.
And so, let's go on to the last topic I think we have, and that is...
And it's fitting. It's the last scene of episode 4, so might as well close out with it.
Very true. It's in Meereen with the Sons of the Harpy, or they're sowing chaos in the streets and just murdering people. And they murder a bunch of... what are the soldiers called?
The Unsullied.
The Unsullied. They're murdering Unsullied in the streets. And we also had a scene earlier in this episode. Barristan, before he goes to take to the streets, he has a conversation with Daenerys about her brother Rhaegar. And This is interesting that we get 2 mentions of Rhaegar in one episode after not hearing about him for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's about the generosity of Rhaegar, how he used to be... He played a harp. And he used to like to go in the streets and play the harp for money, and he would donate the money across the city, yada, yada, yada. So he's basically talking about what a stand-up guy or brother was, and then he takes to the streets to go... I guess he wants to go walk the streets like he did with Rhaegar, and he gets caught up in the turmoil with the Sons of the Harpies, and he kicks a bit of ass, but unexpectedly he gets taken down in the fight. which doesn't happen in the books. And Barristan Selmy is alive in the books at this point. So, yeah, I know that a lot of the book people are pretty sad about this.
Yeah, I know some people are like, well, Sir Barristan would have just destroyed all of them, but I felt that the numbers overwhelmed him, and he did a damn good job. I mean, he was doing better than like 4 or 5 Unsullied. Like he was taking on like 12 guys, and he was just killing them right and left. It just unfortunately the numbers just swamped him, and he got nailed in like the Achilles tendon or something like that, and went down and. He just wasn't going to be the same after that, but he still killed a couple of guys from like one knee. You know, I mean, he went down fighting, and I'm glad that they gave him that. I know he's apparently still alive in the books, but I think this death was important, because.
Are we at this point? Do you want to move to speculation?
Sure. I was just going to say, before we go to speculation, I want to say I'm glad they gave him his due, because we've been told he's one of the greatest swords in all of Westeros and probably all of that world. And I'm glad that a man at his advanced age was able to take out that many Sons of the Harpy by himself. I mean, it was pretty damn impressive, and it proved as to why he was still one of the great swords alive.
He got a decent send off. He did. But I still think he was underutilized in the show. I almost felt a lot of times like they didn't really have a place for him.
Yeah.
Like he didn't really get to fight before this scene, I don't think.
No. Outside of his introduction when he killed the assassin that was trying to kill her in season 1. Season 2?
I think it was 3.
Oh, was it that late that he came along? Okay.
Yeah, because he was in season 1. He was in King's Landing.
Right.
He was MIA in season 2.
Okay.
Season 3, he joins up with Dany. Yeah.
That would make sense, because I didn't recognize who he was in season 3. I was like, who is this guy? Because he'd been gone a whole season. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So we haven't really seen him. He didn't get any chances really to fight. He was just kind of another older guy next to Jorah on her Queen's Council, basically.
Yeah.
So I feel like his death is going to be more important than his time with her on the show.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely stir up some emotions with Dany. It'll be interesting to see how she reacts to this, because she's losing probably her last elderly advisor, because she banished Jorah and she relied on Barristan for a lot of the Westeros, the Westeros politics and like kind of what would my family do kind of thing.
Well, beyond just a mentor, it is her last connection to Westeros. Everybody else everybody else next to her are from Essos. They're not from Westeros, so she doesn't have that connection to the Western world anymore, and she needs that in order to go take the throne.
It's an important aspect to her life that she's desperately trying to reclaim, and she eventually wants to be there. So, yeah, that's a very important part of her rule. It'll be interesting to see where this goes. I don't know. I just to talk about Book Barristan a bit. He sticks around and he helps Dany for a bit. He's still alive. I can't even say if he's going to die in the books. People assume he will die just because he's Barristan the Bold. Like he's going to go out big, and he does some badass things in the book that I'm sad they're not going to make it in the show because he's gone now. But one of the great things that stood out to me, Barristan becomes a POV character in the 5th book. And he's an interesting character. He's very interesting. And he's put into a position where he's a knight. He's a simple guy. He's about following his before, he's just always followed his commands, and he's done what his king has asked of him. And he was a diligent warrior, and he was about honor and doing the right thing and following this command. And so he gets put in a position of power in Dany's court where he has to make certain decisions that are political in nature, and it's not something he's not comfortable making those types of decisions. He's the kind of guy who wants to be told what to do and follow through with it. So when he has to make these tough little political decisions, he kind of gets you could tell in his POV he's not comfortable doing that kind of thing. And there's a part in the books where one of the guys he's had to meddle with and like argue with a lot in the court, that the guy comes after him, and he's like, "All right, it's time to die," and he's like attacking. He's about to attack Barristan with his bodyguards, and in Barristan's mind, he's like, "Finally." He's like, I forgot the exact line, but it's so beautiful in the books because it's like he's ready to take the sword. Like that's what feels comfortable to him, and he just destroys those guys. He just cuts through them like nothing, and it's just funny because you watch his POV and he's struggled with political decisions and arguing and all these little things in the court that he just is not comfortable with, and the sword is that's his thing, you know. And he just destroys those guys, and it's beautiful. Like, and so yeah, I just wanted to mention that it's one of my favorite Barristan moments. And yeah, so Barristan's gone. I feel like the actor did a good job with what he was given.
Yeah, he had a presence, and I thought he did a great job. Now is Grey Worm gone? I couldn't tell. I don't know if Grey Worm is still alive or not. He could very well be dead.
I think he's alive.
Okay.
I don't think he's dead. But I'm just speculating. I don't know. He's alive in the books, but I don't know if they're gonna kill him in the. I don't think he's dead because one thing, he was about to die. Wasn't he about to die like an episode or two ago? Like someone was gonna slash his throat or something, and he got saved. I'm trying to remember.
No, no. There was a guy that looked like him that got killed toward the beginning of the season. I can't. I don't think Grey Worm was close to death.
Oh, I'm not sure. I think he's alive though. The way the scene played out, I feel like he's still alive.
Right, because he kind of looked down at Barristan before he finally collapsed. I mean, he was still like he was. It wasn't like they collapsed. It is the way it ended seemed like he was still alive. He was just passed out.
Yeah, he's probably just passing out from his wounds, and then he'll probably come to and tell the tale to Daenerys. So somebody's got to tell her what happened.
Sure.
And so I think that's what's going to happen. So, anything else you want to talk about before we close out?
No, the show's getting better as always. So we are moving. We are moving right along.
And yeah, so just to note this, there were these 4 episodes that we've already watched. Those are the ones that leaked on the internet. And so next week will be episode 5, and it's all fresh for the internet. Like honestly, it's been very hard to go on Reddit or any other message boards that I normally go on because there's spoilers. Like if you didn't watch the leaked episodes, there's people already talking about it, you know? And it's unfortunate that the show is so popular that if there is ever a leak, then it's not safe to go in your normal places, you know?
Yeah, I'm actually I'm pretty happy that I was able to sort of sidestep all that stuff. I stayed clear away from any sort of spoilers over the past few weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, episode 5 this coming Sunday. I can't wait to see it. So I think from here on out, like we're done with the build up of the season. Now things are going to happen. And yeah, just this Barristan's death. I think it's going to kick off a series of events, and it's going to get nuts. So I can't wait. But yeah, I mean, that's all I have. Did you want to make any speculations before we close out?
Beyond, I feel Theon is going to be he's going to be doing something in the next couple episodes just because the way he looked at Sansa in episode 3. I feel like Theon's is gonna be doing something. Beyond that, I don't know, man. The show's going in directions I didn't think it would go in.
Yeah, it's getting unpredictable. So, yeah, I mean, with that, we'll just go ahead and close out. Sorry we missed episode 3. Hopefully this covered your needs for discussion on that one. But yeah, we'll be back next week for episode 5. I believe it's called Kill the Boy. And I love the name of that episode because I know what it's referring to, and it's going to be good. So we'll see. So yeah, this is Brian McBalls and Jordan Wade, and we're signing out. So we'll see you next week.